Hello and welcome to episode 23 of Give Yourself Some Leeway with me, your host, Eugene Lee. This podcast is dedicated to helping high achievers on the verge of burnout reclaim a healthier work-life balance without sacrificing their growth or success. Today, I am honored to welcome our guest, Elizabeth Batalla. Elizabeth has been working in corporate for the last 30 years and is the founder of the Institute of Achievement and Excellence. She helps women level up in 9 life areas so that they can achieve their professional and personal transformation goals to secure leadership roles and business opportunities. She also helps companies better educate and promote their female talent. In today's episode, Liz and I discuss how to better manage your stress levels in the workplace, how to approach those awkward conversations with your manager, and we also have a pretty lengthy Q&A at the end where Liz goes through all the questions for the people who reached out on Instagram. If you enjoyed today's episode, please reach out at giveyourselfsomeleeway.com on our social media or shoot me an email, eugene@leeway.ie. Thank you, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode today with Elizabeth Batalla. So Liz, it's great to have you here on the show. And I mean, to have someone with your level of expertise in corporate, 30 years in corporate, and then to go on to coaching and helping women level up both in their personal and professional lives. Something that I've always found intriguing about coaches is where they get that spark. So if you don't mind telling us a little bit more about yourself and where that vision originated from and why you do what you do.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me on your show, Eugene. I really appreciate to be here. In relation to my background, I have worked in predominantly male-dominated environments. And it has been a challenge, a reward, but a challenge in its own right. And during that time in my corporate life, I also lectured at different universities and colleges, etc. And I had many people, predominantly women, come to me with different concerns, questions. And over the period of that time, I collated all of that. I also collated all of the lessons learned from my own mentors, from my own coaches, and from my own studies. And I felt that a lot of these things were not taught in schools, were not taught at the university level, were not taught even in the organization. And I created what was called the Institute for Achievement of Excellence. And that contains almost a boot camp approach to all of these topics. And they span 9 life areas based on the conversations I've had. And that's been my vision.
That's great, Liz. And I think that's especially coming from your experience working in corporate. When we think of especially the last 3 years, when after lockdown and coming back into the workplace after lockdown, it's made the workplace I suppose a volatile environment. So how do you think for people who do work, let's say in a corporate environment, what is the best way for them to restore that balance after returning to the workplace?
There are many things that someone can do to restore that balance. And again, that's the whole premise of why it is I am doing what I'm doing. But just simply, to put it simply, there are 2 aspects. There are intrinsic aspects, and then there are extrinsic aspects. So the intrinsic aspects are the areas that we have control over. We have control over ourselves and how we react to certain situations. And this is what I term leveling up, where you learn how to better navigate the space. You learn how to create better habits to give yourself that support around you so that you can achieve what it is you want to achieve. Also, looking at what the organization can do, what they can offer, how they can support you through that journey. And I know we are coming to some Q&A aspect to what it is we're doing here. I'll answer that in more detail. But basically, looking at what you as the individual, what you can do based on what you have control over, and also tapping into the resources of what the organization has to offer.
Yeah, that is good. So when it comes into tapping into what the organization has to offer, how do
Mm-hmm.
they approach the organization? Because sometimes it feels like the organization says those resources are available,
Mm-hmm.
but they can be very, like in my own experience, sometimes they say that things are available, but you really have to go out of your way to look for those aids as such. And sometimes you may feel almost incompetent if you're looking for those aids. Like, why are you not able for your work? Why are you looking for these aids?
No, it's different organizations, they have different policies, rules, procedure. There are different stages of maturity in how they communicate and what they communicate to their employees. HR, it's a space in itself, because they tend to be the ones responsible for the learning and development aspect of things. And then the directive comes from, obviously, the senior leadership team or the management team. It can be different depending on the industry that you're in and the size of the company that you are in. But overall, the responsibility, I would say, apart from what the organization has to offer, the responsibility is to a large degree on you, looking for those resources and being proactive in your own career growth and personal path. If speak to HR, speak to the L&D team, speak to your manager, speak to those in authority to find out what is there, what is there in the organization that's being offered. Does the organization have an intranet where you can go and find that information out? If nothing is being offered, are you in a position where you can suggest something to the organization that there is a need? Can you speak to your manager to get your manager to sponsor something that may be of need within the organization? So there are different ways that it can be done, by looking and speaking at different levels, people at different levels in the organization, as well as taking up your own initiative to introduce something new, perhaps, to the organization that is a real need, but maybe have not been seen that way before.
Yeah, so it's that managers can be more forthcoming when you do, let's say, ask for it. I suppose the thing that holds a lot of people back is the fact they have a kind of a mindset. I'm not sure if maybe it's just a UK and Ireland thing. It could be just Western culture as well, that people are afraid to ask for help, and they feel that their duty is to perform their task without asking for help, and that they should be skilled in their role and not have to look for assistance. And they almost fear if they do look for assistance, they're made feel incompetent. But it's not the case. More often than not, it's just in their head. So how do they get around? Maybe it's a mindset shift they need, that it is okay to ask for help in terms of their role or in terms of their job, or if they need assistance, because that's what the company is there for. They're there to assist their employees for the greater good of the company.
Yes, many people may look at asking for help as a form of weakness, and it's not. And again, when we get into the Q&A, there is a way in which you can ask for help where it does not come across as being weak or being incompetent or not understanding your role. Yes, there are certain specifics of the role that one needs to understand to ensure that the job is done sufficiently well. But as you said, Eugene, we are in a volatile, situation economically. Businesses are asking for us to do more with less, and there is that tendency, that feeling of overwhelm. And differentiating between needing help to complete something, not because you're incompetent, but because you don't have sufficient resources, is a very different conversation to have. So understanding exactly how to ask for that help, when to ask for that help, and the environment that you set up to support asking for help is crucial. And what many managers, what we need to understand too is many managers, we don't have all of the answers. Don't think because that person is your manager, they have the answer to everything. They too may be struggling. They too have managers that they have to please. And because they may have, multiple people that they have to manage, they may not realize giving you that one additional project is one additional project too much. You see, yes, conversations by asking for help, you're not showing weakness. What you're showing is that you are still interested in achieving. However, help is required.
That is very interesting side of things. I suppose, and when it comes to, let's say, asking for help, are there any specific routines or habits that you'd recommend to someone in terms of trying to level up in both their career or professional life, things that they can put in place? I think that's one thing that Give Yourself Some Leeway has always been about. It's about trying to implement those tiny habits towards continuous improvement in your life. So are there any specific routines or habits that you had that contributed to your success?
Yes, I had specific routines depending on the time of the day. So for me, in the morning, I needed something to boost me. I needed something to energize me. So I sort of adopted energizing habits. That's your exercise, breathing exercises, cardio exercises, whatever it takes to wake my body up, to energize me, to get that blood flowing and to get me going for the day. During midday, because I was sitting at a desk more or less the entire day, I did what was called rebalancing activities, where I would go for a walk, again, get everything moving, because it set me up for the second half of the day. And then in the evening, I would do, various things to calm myself down, whether it's meditation, whether it's personal care, self-care, whatever it takes, to sort of set me up for a good night's sleep, because a good day starts the night before, right? There are other tips and tricks and techniques that I will explain as we go into the Q&A, but basically what you're looking to do is really tap into yourself and understand what you need to help you fuel through, give you the fuel to go through your day experience.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of these habits come back to. It's prioritizing the night before for the day ahead. It's like you can't run. You need to fill your own cup first. You need to refuel yourself the night before for the day ahead. And I love how I'm seeing that a lot of repetition on that point, and it in so many different ways. It's phrased in so many different ways, but all comes back to the same point. And I'm awful for it myself, trying to prioritize sleep. I'm running on 4 to 6 hours at the best of times, and it's something that I know that I need to improve on myself, and it's something I need to get back into the balance of. But it can be difficult when you're trying to both be productive at work and make time for yourself outside of work if you're working long hours. So when it comes to when you're trying to prioritize habits like sleep and other healthy habits, there are often setbacks. So how do you maintain these habits when life tends to get in the way all the time?
That's a really good question. What I would say to that, and what I tend to implement through, my life and through lots of things, is the 80-20 rule. You do not need to get it right 100% of the time. It's not about perfection. If you were to exercise, let's say 80% of the week, and you got really, really sound rest 90% of the week, your body can survive and even thrive. The thing is to create that balance over a period of whatever that is to you, a day, a week, etc. So it's not about getting it right every single time, because as you said, Eugene, life gets in the way. Yeah. And what I do when life gets in the way is I reduce things. So maybe on a morning, if I used to allocate, let's say 45 minutes, I may only allocate 20 minutes, because 20 minutes is better than nothing. Yeah. And if I can't even allocate 5 minutes because that day is a rush and I have to skip that day, then I don't skip the following day. All right, because life happens. So it's either reduce, or if you eliminate, pick up the following day and keep going. But as long as you hit that 80-20 rule, things will be fine. You'll be further ahead than you can ever imagine.
Yeah, that's definitely great. It's not about perfection. It's just a matter of progress.
Yes.
And it's something that I've always come back to when it comes to trying to build a discipline. It's to never miss twice. If you miss out on it today, definitely don't miss it. Make it a priority tomorrow. And especially when it comes to trying to stay healthy or to make a maybe a fitness decision or a nutritional or a health decision in your life, that if you decide to go and grab a takeaway today, it's like, okay, I'm not getting a takeaway tomorrow. I'm going to get back to my routine again tomorrow. By having that takeaway from my dinner today, I'm freeing that time to do a shop tomorrow and make sure I eat healthy. So again, that comes back to healthy habits to give you that energy to perform better and in your professional life, that you're by investing your time and energy in developing a healthy habit for your own physical, mental and emotional health. You get a much higher return on investment in your future. You're improving your quality of life so that you can focus both on your personal life and your professional life.
Completely agree. It is a holistic approach. It's not about let me just take care of my mental health only, or let me just take care of my physical health only. There is a place for every aspect, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, everything. It's a holistic approach to really leveling up if you want to achieve what you want to achieve. Because if it's not balanced, and when I say balance, I don't mean, again, perfecting it every single day over a period of time. If it's not balanced, there will be consequences. If you don't look after your health over a period of time, it will fail you. If you don't look after your mental health over a period of time, it will fail you. So it's about, a touch point over a period of time to each facet of who you are, to ensure that all of you, you're moving forward.
And when it comes to when you're in the workplace and you're trying to maintain these healthy habits, sometimes another setback can be when you're coming up to deadlines and when the stress can become a bit more overwhelming. Are there specific maybe tools or techniques that you can adapt to or adopt into your routine to help you manage especially stressful situations in the workplace?
Yes, there are quite a few. There are quite a few, and again, I'll elaborate on that when we get into the Q&A. But basically, it's about understanding the limit of your personal resources, and your personal resources span three things: time, energy, and finances. Now, if you are up against a deadline, you may or may not have to speak to your partner or your family to say, I need to put in extra hours here to meet this deadline. And once that's done, I can take a step back. If you are ill, you may not be able to put in that extra time. So it's also about understanding your personal resources and how you can put boundaries around that to protect yourself. Because if you fall ill, you probably will not reach those goals. And if you look at it, yes, there are times when deadlines are hard and they need to be met. But on many occasions, if we actually look at a deadline, deadlines can be shifted. They can be shifted if need be. And if they can't be shifted and your personal resources don't allow you to achieve those deadlines, then don't wait. You need to ask for help. You need to go to those who have access to the resources to say, I need more resources to make this happen. Obviously, there is a way to do that. But if you kill yourself to meet every single deadline, I guarantee you that you are on a direct and fast path to burnout, which is not fun and it's not pretty.
Yeah, 100%. It's like you kind of get stuck in the mindset where I know people who don't like asking for help. And they're like, no, I can do this on my own. I can get my perfect results. But then when they feel that they're running on empty and they're too afraid to ask for help, more often than not, I suppose managers want you to ask for help and admit that you need extra resources because you know what you need, you know your own capacity, and you know what resources you need to achieve that goal. Rather than trying to do it all yourself, it's more commendable that you're saying, no, I need to delegate some of these responsibilities to someone else so that the end result can be achieved.
Yes,
And I think that's what's more important at the end of the day is the outcome, rather than putting 100% of your output into it and not achieving the final outcome.
Eugene, what would you say if I tell you that not asking for help is selfish?
Yes, and I think that's something that people find it hard to come to grips with. And 100%, I do agree with you.
Yes.
It's when you don't ask for help, especially when it's selfish, because you're not going to achieve the end result to its highest quality, or it's to its best standard. If you're the only one working on, let's say it's like a project at work, and maybe you're implementing a new standard or guideline, or bringing new equipment to a production line or something, and only your perspective has been put into implementing this new machine, and but you haven't consulted people who work on that production line, or people who work in that environment every day. And next thing, you bring in a big machine that takes up half the room and blocks off half the workspace. Then if you haven't taken in other people's perspectives, or given other people's inputs into design idea, then it's not the best possible outcome. You've probably caused more hassle. Maybe you've put a health and safety hazard into the room, and it probably takes the project another 5 or 6 months, because you have to address all these issues that you hadn't accounted for, because you hadn't looked for help on how to address come up with the best possible solution. I suppose that's just off the top of my head one example that I could think of, that it's probably selfish that you're taking all the credit for yourself on completing the project, but not giving the best possible result for the company or for that area.
Yes, I agree. And you spoke about the outcome there, but there are also so many other facets to that. When you don't ask for help, and you don't ask for help at the appropriate time when you need it, what happens is your lack of asking for help becomes everyone else's emergency, because now everyone has to firefight to get that project done, right? When you don't ask for help, you can compromise the outcome of the project, and therefore compromise the entire team. When you don't ask for help, you compromise yourself in terms of depleting yourself, and you have nothing left for your family, your friends, and for your own self-preservation. When you don't ask for help, you're putting yourself on a path to degrade everything that you have to offer in terms of your professional and your personal world. So be mindful. Again, there is a way to do it, there is a time to do it, but also understand that when you don't ask for help, it is not just impacting you, it is impacting everyone whose life that interact with yours, or mingle with yours, from your professional life all the way into your personal life.
And that is a great point to make. I suppose when it comes to people not asking for help, where do you think that originates in? Is it in our culture? Is it, let's say, a nature versus nurture situation? Is it how people are raised not to ask for help? Or do you feel that it's people who they don't want to feel, let's say, weak at work, or feel incompetent, that they feel that asking for help is seen as a bad thing in the workplace, even though if they were on the other side of the coin, or if someone else was working and wasn't asking for help, and they were like, oh no, I want to have my input on this project, and that person wasn't asking for help, if you literally flip it, it's like, do people realize that they're not asking for help, and they don't see it as a bad thing?
It is a host of things, all of what you've said, and it boils down to, in terms of confidence, asking for help. There are many people who are just not confident in asking for help. Now, where does that come from? It comes from the fact that we want to be seen, as being competent. We want to be seen as being capable. We want to be, the ones to do well in our role. Some people who may be insecure in their role may feel that asking for help shows that they can't do their job properly and they need input of others. There's a whole host of reasons that can stem all the way from how you were raised as a child into the experiences you've had in the workplace. Maybe you've asked for help in the past, and because of how it was done, it was not received well and the consequences were negative and you were burned by that. So there are different reasons why people choose not to ask for help. But fundamentally, if done professionally and it's done properly, most people will not have a problem providing that help, because people are inherently good. And think of your own self. If someone were to come to you and ask for help and you were in a position to help, it's human nature, we would help automatically. So I understand the hesitancy where that is concerned. But again, not asking for help means that you can potentially negatively impact everyone else around you, including yourself.
Yeah, that's very well said, Liz.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I know as we've said, a lot of the questions they
Yes.
kind of relate a lot to what we have to say in the Q&A from Instagram. So just to wrap things up, do you have any, before we go into the Q&A, do you have any final thoughts about burnout, especially in the workplace, that you'd like to share as part of our conversation?
Yes, I would say, first of all, be proactive in dealing with burnout. Don't wait until you are completely burnt out to do something about it, because at that point, you are almost completely depleted of everything. And things like depression and all of those things kicking in overdrive, and through rumination, you can go in a downward spiral. If you are at a point where you are truly burnt out and you cannot take another step forward, I advise you to please seek professional advice. If you don't know where to go, speak to your GP and they can refer you to someone, because it can be a challenge to pull yourself out of that dark space on your own. It can be very much a challenge. Not everyone can do it. So please, if you are at that stage, please seek professional help. The questions I will be answering and the tips I will be giving, it's more about preventative. It's more about you are recognizing that you are heading in that direction and you want to do something about it before you get to that point. Yeah. And another thing I would say is you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. It's not about perfection. It's about excellence. Excellence is doing the best you can with the resources that you have. You don't need to be perfect to make an impact in this world, because no one is, and perfection is an illusion. It's something that you will never attain, no matter how great you are. Okay, so with those two things in mind, I'm quite happy to go to the Q&A part of things and look at how we can answer the questions.
Yeah, definitely. You definitely had a lot of gold nuggets there in your last few takeaways there. It's like perfectionism is almost like self-sabotage at the end of the day. Nothing is ever perfect or good enough if you look in through the eyes of a perfectionist.
And even if someone is a perfectionist and through their eyes it's perfection, through someone else's eyes it may not be perfection. So therefore it's not perfect because it's in the eyes of the beholder. Yes.
Yes.
So there we go.
That's great. Okay, so yeah, with the Q&A,
Mm-hmm.
I actually, I've sent you on the transcript of the Q&A questions. So would you like to get started on that?
Yes, of course. So what I will do to make it easy for your listeners, I will read out the questions. I've grouped them because some of the questions, the same answer works for the questions. So I'll read the questions and I'll just give the answers. So here we go. There are 3 questions in this batch here. How can I communicate the impact of stress and burnout on my work without sounding like I'm making excuses or being negative? Now, there were 2 other questions here that came in that wasn't really for burnout, but I will still cover them because the answer is the same. Things like autism present differently in men and women, and for that reason, many women are diagnosed later in life. Men already have years of coping mechanisms, and where women may be seen as lazy. That's another one. The other one is there are supposed to be laws not discriminating over women, remarriage, kids, etc. However, because the management assume kids are on the cards soon, that would be a waste. So we're looking here at those two situations can lead to burnout because people are worried about them. So the main question is here, how can I communicate the impact of stress and burnout on my work without sounding like I'm making excuses? This falls into two buckets, the answer. You have general long-term things that you can do, and you have specific short-term things that you can do. And I'll give 3 examples in each. Now let's look at general long-term. There are many things that sometimes a woman goes through that, you know, men, it's a challenge for them to understand because it's not part of their world. For instance, things like menopause, things like endometriosis, etc. What I would say to women in particular is one of the long-term things is that you can support tribes where women are supported to get into leadership roles, because sometimes it's easier to speak to someone if it's that person it's a woman like yourself. She may understand easier. So one thing you can do is to support women in leadership roles and support your colleagues in going for leadership roles. So support is one. Educate is another. Remember, if you are familiar with a topic and you are knowledgeable about a topic, don't assume because you know about that topic, other people do too. It's not part of their priority list. So what can you do to educate your colleagues so that when you do have those discussions like burnout with your manager or with your colleagues, they better understand it. They better understand the consequences. Yeah. Can you write an article in the company's newsletter? Can you do a lunch and learn presentation? You know, all of these things are things you can do to help educate the business. And yes, educating the business is also part of your role if you want to have those discussions out in the open. Okay. The final one for general long term. So we have support, educate, and the next one is communicate. If you feel uncomfortable communicating these things, or you may feel, okay, I am a bit junior, I don't want to do these things. Can you reach out to another female in a senior leadership role, or someone else who you're comfortable with in a senior leadership role, for them to be your voice, for them to be your spokesperson, for them to use their authority to help you on your journey along? So these are some long-term things that you can look at, and those are general and they're not specific to you, but they can help the process. All right. The short-term things or specific things. Let's look at 2 things. Communicating with your manager. That's one. When you are communicating burnout to your manager, always go in with facts. Don't just go in with your feelings and explaining your feelings. You need to present facts. And I'm not talking about statistics around burnout and all of that. I'm talking about Mr. Manager or Mrs. Manager. These are the projects that I'm working on. All of them are priority 1. The existing resources I have, the hours that are necessary don't allow me to achieve that. Which of these projects would you like me to prioritize first? You see, so you're going in, not just talking about how you're feeling overwhelmed, you're giving evidence as to why. You're giving that manager something to work with. Facts. When you speak to your manager, always go in with a recommendation or some sort of solution. It doesn't have to be a full solution, it can be a part solution. So for instance, if you realize, look, part of my burnout, it's because at home, I have to deal with something on a morning. Let's say you have an elderly parent you have to care for in the morning. Can you negotiate to start work later? If not, can you negotiate to work later 2 days of the week instead of all 5 days? You see what I mean? So you're going in with a solution that can help your situation. You're not depending on your manager for that solution. And then finally, when communicating with your manager, know your manager's management style. there are three main styles for managers. There are more, but the three main ones. A manager can be autocratic, which means that they prefer facts, short-term goals. They like, they micromanage. So when you're speaking with that manager, make sure you really do have your facts in place and you communicate things factually. Remove the emotional charge from the situation. If your manager is democratic, that manager tends to be worried more about the team, the impact to the team. So when you're talking about your burnout or you're talking about the contribution you want to make, align it with your contribution to the team. And then finally, you have visionary managers who are more long-term in thinking. So you talk about the long-term impact that your burnout can have and how you are going to mitigate that. Okay, and then finally, a short-term specific is self. What are you going to do to manage your own burnout? There is a really good article by the Mayo Clinic, and it's called The 4 A's of Stress Relief. Avoid, alter, adapt, and accept. Look at your life, your work life. What can you avoid in the organization? Are there specific people that you can avoid that are causing that burnout? What can you alter? Can you shift departments? Can you even shift your desk? What can you alter? What do you need to adapt to? Do you truly understand the unspoken rules in the organization? Are you creating drama for yourself to a certain extent? And then accept. What are some things that are just out of your control and you need to learn to deal with it in that way? So if I were to go through that quickly again, Eugene, before we discuss that, how do you communicate burnout without it being negative? General, long-term, you support other women or other people, you educate the organization, and you communicate by contributing your knowledge. Specific and short-term, when you're communicating with your manager, have the facts, present some sort of solution, don't only leave it up to your manager, and understand your manager's management style so it helps your communication. When it comes to yourself, apply the 4 A's. Avoid, alter, adapt, and accept. I know that was a lot, but there you go.
That's very well answered that one question. So no, that very much summed everything up very nicely there.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the next batch of questions. Managers have different attitudes to support men and women struggling at work. That's one. What are the best strategies for approaching a manager about burnout and stress at work? And finally, what are some ways to improve my resilience and coping skills in the face of workplace stress? Now, apart from what it is I've just explained with the general long-term and specific short-term, there are other things that can be done, especially in terms of improving your resilience. One thing is understanding that, especially as women, just doing a good job is not sufficient. Ladies, if you look at how men operate in business, in the work environment, when they do something, they shout it from the rooftops. That's not arrogance. That is about projecting yourself. It's about raising your personal profile. It's about letting people know that you have done a good job. Now, I get it. Many of us are introverts, and I'm not saying to go out there and tell everyone what you've done. I'm saying don't sit behind your desk and feel that plodding away and plodding along will get you recognition. It doesn't work that way. In business, you do have to ensure that you are seen. You raise your personal profile to a certain extent. How you do that varies depending on the resources you have access to and your own personal, your own personal style. Okay, so understand that you do need to showcase what you have accomplished at work. You also need to understand the unspoken rules in the corporate, in business. Now, what are these unspoken rules? It can be something as simple as you going to your manager and feeling burnt out because every time you ask for something, you don't get it. The thing is, on the organizational chart, that manager may be senior to you. But the reality of how things actually operate in the organization, he's not the decision maker or she's not the decision maker. Right? Are you actually going to the right person? So understanding the rules of the game and also understanding the language of the other sex. As an example, men find it very annoying when women offer unsolicited advice. All right? Unless it's a direct, you are in a position where you have to give instruction. I'm not talking about giving instruction. I'm talking about seeing someone doing something and offering your unsolicited advice. Men don't enjoy that. Similarly, women do not enjoy being mansplained to. We understand lots of things. We don't need that dynamic. Okay? So the reason why I'm bringing these things up is because when you talk about improving your resilience and coping skills or approaching your manager, one of the things that causes burnout, Eugene, is the feeling that everything happening in the organization is personal. It's an attack. No matter what I do, no matter how hard I work, no matter how I try to adapt, it's not working out. People dislike me. I know that for a fact. They don't, invite me to things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That can happen when you don't understand the rules of the game, when you don't understand how to communicate properly, when sometimes you are doing things that annoy people and you don't actually understand that that is what you're doing, or you don't appreciate that there are rules in an organization, unspoken rules, that if you don't adhere to, or you don't understand, so you know how to bend them, how to break them, and if you need to move on, life at work can become emotionally challenging and exhausting. Yeah?
Yeah. No, again, hitting the nail on the head there again.
All right. The next set of questions. How can I make sure taking time off work for my mental health doesn't negatively impact my chances of getting promotion? And what are some ways to demonstrate my commitment to my job and to the company, even as I seek to manage stress and burnout? Okay. Now, again, when it comes to burnout, it depends on the stage that you are at moving towards this. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are burnt out, do not try to push through it. It doesn't work. If you are burnt out, you need to step back and take that time out to recharge, to refuel before you go again, because it will not be a pretty situation. So if you are heading in that direction and you want to take time off, but you don't want to negatively impact your chances of getting promotion, or you don't want to be seen as, a previous question, lazy, here are some of the things that you can do. 3 things. 1, document your processes so that when you do step away from your role for a bit or reduce your commitment to your role, someone else can take over. It shows that you are putting the company, ahead of the game. It shows that you are also not insecure about your what it is you bring to the table. Because it's not just about processes, it's also about you, the individual, the creativity you bring to the role as well. So you should not be afraid of documenting various processes so that people understand how things work. So 1 is you can document processes so that if someone else has to take over, it's more seamless. The company doesn't feel deprived, or they don't feel a negative hit as a result of you needing to step back. That's 1. The second thing is, if you still have that energy and you don't have to step back right away, but you're trying to be proactive, then look for a time when the organization is going through a slow period. Maybe that organization is a seasonal organization, or maybe the clients they serve, there is a part of the year where it's less demanding. And then you could negotiate to step back or reduce during that period. So again, the impact to the business is minimized, but at the same time, honoring the fact that you need to step back and take things slowly. Okay, so there may be slow periods in the organization. Third, and this is important, this is really important that you do this, because then this mitigates that fear of not having a job when you need to get back into the workspace. Highlight the projects that you will be resuming once you step back into work, show how they will be delivered, and also explain the unique perspective you are going to bring to the table when you resume those projects. Yeah, so look at what you have done there. You have set up someone else to take over the basics. You have showed the company you have considered them by trying to negotiate a step back during a slower time period. And you have sealed your deal in terms of the value you add by showing that this is how I plan to resume my commitment through these projects. This is what I bring to the table. This is how I plan to ensure its success, etc. So you've set yourself up there for success. And the final thing, and the most important thing, please, when you step away, do not continue to answer your emails or do things for work, etc. You are stepping back for a reason. You are stepping back to recharge. If you step back and continue to work, you will re-enter depleted, and those promises you made in terms of how you're going to resume your projects and how you're going to meet the commitments of your projects, you will be putting that in jeopardy. So truly step back and give yourself the break that you deserve. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Eugene.
Yeah, I think one thing that did come to mind when you were on about like setting yourself up for success before you step away from the job. A lot of people, when they go into burnout, though, they're already in a state of cynicism and negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to trying to think about what can I bring to the role,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably already in a state of, I can't do anything more here. Anything that I do is being overseen, or they don't appreciate me here. And it's like, how do they get in the right mindset to bring that to the table to their manager before they take a step back?
Okay, so a few things there. One, it doesn't have to be an elaborate plan. I'm not talking about an elaborate plan. I'm talking just an awareness so that it shows you are willing to recommit. You're not stepping away to step out. You're stepping away to step back in stronger. Okay, it doesn't have to be a full-blown plan. It is part of the three-piece puzzle to show that you are committed. The idea is doing this not when you are at the stage of burnout, but prior to that, because you know you're heading in that direction. Okay, so this is if you are really in a state of burnout, you need to step back and you need to seek that professional help. So I'm speaking about someone who knows that they are heading in that direction and they've proactively taken the step to step back. So that's another thing. It doesn't have to be a grand plan. Also, yes, I know that you are at the point where you don't want to think about moving forward in that organization. But the thing is, on many occasions, it takes time to find another opportunity. Yes, by all means, look for another opportunity, but you may not be in a situation, or you may be, if you are, that's great, but you may not be in a situation financially where you can step away from that job for an extended period of time without having a job. So what you need to look at is, what can I do to preserve self-preservation in order to give myself the space to look for other opportunities and secure other opportunities? All right. So those are things to think about as well. It's just an awareness that you are stepping back into the role and this is how you can contribute. It doesn't have to be a fully comprehensive plan, just a suggestion in terms of what can be done. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good starting place anyway, yeah.
Other three questions. What are some effective techniques for managing stress and improving work-life balance? How can I improve time management and prioritize tasks in order to minimize stress and avoid burnout? What are some resources and tools I can use to support my career development and manage stress and burnout? Again, apart from all that we have discussed, there are three things that you can do. One, try calendar blocking. Make appointments with yourself. I remember in my career, I always block out in the UK, 9 to 9:30, 12 to 12:30, and 4:30 to 5. Those are blocked out in my calendar. People can't put meetings in those because it allows me to get into work in a calm way, to answer my emails, to read any notes I may have for meetings, etc. I have that half an hour for lunch. Personally, I didn't need an hour for lunch, but I assure myself half an hour for lunch to recharge. And then in the evening, before I left work, I gave myself that half an hour to close things off properly. Now, did it always work? No, it didn't always work because people would come at my desk. My manager may book a meeting in that time. But on average, it worked because people did not book meetings during that time. Okay, if I had something that I needed to focus on for a particular task, I would calendar block an hour. I made a meeting with myself to give myself that time. Okay, it's a way, if you don't manage your calendar, other people will. So calendar blocking is one. Another thing is establishing good routines for yourself. And we spoke about how I did rebalancing activities midday by going for a walk because I was sitting at a desk all day long. Okay, if you are, active, maybe looking to reel that in a bit and do something a bit more passive to energize. Something you can do as well with routines is habit stacking. So if you are eating at your desk, eat somewhere else and maybe take a book with you. Establish habits and add little micro habits on top of those habits so that it becomes easier over a period of time. Okay. And finally, so you have calendar blocking, establishing good routines, and another one is coaching programs. And this is not about me, selling my coaching programs. It's not about that. Yes, I'm a coach, but there's a reason, because we don't give ourselves time to speak, time to be heard. We don't give ourselves time during the day. And sometimes a coach asking the right questions at the right time can trigger things in you, can trigger a potential in you that you didn't know was there. Right? So those are some of the things, some of the tools that you can use.
Yeah, and that's really helpful. Is like it's and again, when it comes back to coaching, it's about it's almost like a time hack itself. Having that guidance there in place instead of you searching for the answers. It's all about someone being there asking you the right questions.
Yes.
Because more than likely you already have the answers inside you. You just haven't been asked the right question to discover what that answer actually means to you.
And sometimes you just haven't given yourself time to think because you're on a roller coaster all the time, hence the burnout. Yeah. Okay, moving on. I know we're moving at a pace. I just want to make sure I answer everyone's question. How can I effectively communicate my needs and boundaries with co-workers and managers? Okay, two things here. One, you train people, you train other people. Teach others the way you would like to be treated. And how can you do that? Don't answer emails on a Sunday, for example. Yeah, because the thing is, when you don't set boundaries, it's very easy for those boundaries to be crossed because people don't know where boundaries are. If you don't set boundaries for yourself, people will set your boundaries for you. Okay, so adopt habits that supports you as an individual. If you were to answer emails on a Sunday, people will start expecting. You will start getting emails over the weekend because people will know that you answer emails on a Sunday. You do sometimes just have to create hard boundaries when it comes to the way in which you deal with work and your personal life. And it's become more difficult now that the majority of us are working from home. It seems like now we are working nonstop and those lines are blurred between personal and professional life. Okay, so be mindful about the habits that you adopt. And because those habits will influence the way other people perceive you and how people treat you in that process. So again, adopt habits in your favor by training others to know what to expect from you. Another thing that you can use to communicate boundaries, because I know people are a bit apprehensive when it comes to communicating boundaries, you can use humor to communicate boundaries. But be careful, because not everyone has the same sense of humor. And sometimes if you don't have the personality behind that, it can be challenging. Yeah. So you can use humor. For instance, I remember I was sitting in a boardroom and the gentlemen in the boardroom were misbehaving. And I mean, at my age, I can afford to say that and get away with it. I said, come on, boys, behave yourselves. And we all cracked up the way I said it. But I said it with a big smile in the sense that it came across softer, but I was quite clearly stating, we need to move on. We need to stop what we're doing, and we need to focus on what needs to be done. So you can use humor, but again, be careful about how that humor is used, because it may not be received the way you intended it. Another question, how can I continue to develop personally and stay current in my field, even while managing stress and burnout? Depending on where you are in that spectrum, if you're right at the very end of burnout, do not even consider developing and staying current in your field. You do not have the energy and the space to do it. You need to recharge and refuel before starting again. Okay, but if you are not there yet and you want to know how to continue, I would say mentorship programs, because you're speaking to people who have been there, done that, and you can reduce the trial and error process. So good mentorship programs. Be proactive in planning your own career development, because it gives your mind a mental escape, because your mind knows now that you have a plan. It's that cushion. It provides a cushion for you. And use all of the techniques that we spoke about earlier to mitigate stress along the way. Okay, and that's how you can continue pushing forward. Another question, how can I determine if a change in role, department, or company might be the best solution for managing stress and burnout? Okay, 3 things here. 1, how toxic is your current environment? If it is extremely toxic, you need to start looking for new opportunities. Another thing is your personal tolerance level to toxicity. Some people can handle more, some people can't. Okay, so you have to be honest with yourself in terms of what your threshold, and that will tell you whether or not, or how long you can stay in that situation, or whether or not you need to move. And then finally, if you have determined that you need to step out of that situation, that role, that department, do your research. If you're going into another company, go to websites that rate companies. Speak to people who you may know that work in those companies. Go on LinkedIn, make connections, ask for references, try to find out about the manager that role will be reporting into, so that you have an idea, because what you don't want is to step out from one toxic situation into an even more toxic situation. Okay, so those are the 3 things that those are the things that you can be mindful of. And I will answer one final question. What are some effective strategies for networking and advancing my career, even when I'm feeling stressed and burnt out? And how can I build and maintain a strong support network, including mentors and allies? To build a strong network, go to your company, your HR department, L&D, and find out if they have mentorship programs available. If they don't, maybe suggest it. You can go online, LinkedIn, Facebook groups, where they may have groups, mentorships that you can build your network from there. Also, there are meetup groups that you may be able to go to offline, that you can start building your networks from there. So all of these are things that you can look at. through that.
I suppose just on that last point about building your network, and again using LinkedIn, Meetup as resources. I think that's one of the things when it comes to burning out and trying to prevent burnout in the first place. When you're burning out, you're disengaging and disconnecting from those around you. So by making that effort to build that network and community around you, it's one of those ways to best prevent burnout from happening in the first place, that you're building up this network of resources and connections, so that even if you are feeling that maybe you're feeling the cynicism and negativity in your role, and it could be because of the toxic work culture, that you're aware that it's not because of you and that your efforts aren't being seen, that maybe it's just that you're no longer a fit for this company, or you've you've kind of maybe hit a ceiling in this company, and this is as far as you can progress with them. And it may not be it may not be that the company's been treating you bad or anything. It's just this is as far as you can go with that company, and you're probably going to burn out in this role if there's no progress. And at least when you know that there are other options to move on and then level up in a new role, maybe that's one way of preventing burnout, is by realizing that you can make these connections and move to another area, or move to another role, move to another company. That it doesn't need to be all seen as a negative, or if you're moving on from the company, that you don't leave with bad blood.
Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. There are so many things that can trigger burnout. There's just so many things. The list is very long. And although toxicity is one of them, as again you said, Eugene, one of the things is that you've reached your ceiling in that organization. The whole idea about this is to tap in, to yourself. Be aware of what is causing you that stress, what is causing you to be on that road to burnout, and mitigate it as early as possible. As early as possible, the earlier the better, because the longer you wait, it's the more difficult it becomes to do all of those things that we have discussed. As you said, when you are in that stage, you don't want to reach out to people, okay? But maybe you can do both. If you are at that stage, first seek professional help so that you get that support, that professional support. And once you start to feel that traction and you start to feel better, then you reach out to others, one step at a time. But take steps to every time push yourself forward. And if you feel that you need to step away from that organization, if you have the finances to completely step away while you do your search, great. Many of us don't have that luxury. So you need to understand what you can do for self-preservation while you are looking for your opportunity. But don't give up. I mean, opportunities, despite the economic environment, there are opportunities out there. But you just need to ensure that you protect yourself, you protect your sanity, so that you set yourself up for the journey ahead, which is to look for the other opportunity.
Well, I hope you liked this episode, and I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, subscribe to the show, because it makes sure that you don't miss out on new episodes. And it also helps me, because it increases the rankings of the show a little bit, which of course makes it a little more easily found by other people who may like it just as much as you. And if you didn't like this episode, or anything about the show in general, or if you have any ideas or suggestions, or just feedback that you want to share, shoot me an email, eugene@leeway.ie. And let me know what I could do better, or just what your thoughts are on what you'd like to see me do in the future. I read everything myself. I'm always looking for new ideas and constructive feedback. So thanks again for listening to this episode, and I hope to hear from you soon.